the Biotech Healthcare Medical Device Roundtable. We're really pleased to have you. We've got some great speakers. And also want to thank Bernard and MacCorkle Insurance for hosting. Have best food at the healthiest firm on where? In the planet?
Healthiest small employer in the San Francisco Bay Area.
So I'd like to introduce Amie Gray, the founder and CEO of N3 Innovations. And Amie brings, and you can welcome to rise, stand, levitate, whatever you want to be. Amie will talk about, Amie helps develop innovation strategies, so it's innovate or die. So if you want to survive and thrive, Amie's the go-to person. She also takes companies from million to billion. So I'm actually looking for my first billion-dollar client. They're in a race, so which one is going to be the first billion-dollar client? So I want to introduce my clients so they can get there. And also, she connects the engineer to the CFO, so she really translates the engineering speak to the controller speak so that she can bring a product to market. So continuing with my Star Trek metaphor, I say she'll translate from Scotty to Kirk and announce the Federation. But that's really important because otherwise the engineers don't really know, where their innovation is heading and what the significance is, and she can tell you some war stories from her background about that. She has 2 kids in high school, and tonight she's going to a football game. So I wanted something from the back of the card. So go Leland Chargers. So that resonates with anybody. There you go. Go Giants. Okay.
Yeah,
welcome.
Let's go with that. Thanks, Michael. That's a very kind introduction. Just to give you a little bit more background. So our mission is to help companies capture opportunities in billion-dollar markets. So we always look at the end market, what's happening with the consumers, what's happening with trends and demographics and things that are really undeniable with changes in the market, and how do you leverage that? And so we have, I don't know about the format, it's a little different than I originally had, but spurring new technical creative ideas, helping the engineers package that up, understanding why it's important to the market, and then getting that out as a business within inside of the company typically, so it's corporate innovation, not necessarily all-just-service. So today, of course, we're going to talk about wearables, as you know, and I want to introduce the innovation adoption model, and I also want to talk about some opportunities that I see inside of wearables and how to evaluate that. And just to set some understanding of Internet of Things and wearables and how that all plays, there are the things in the devices that we like to talk about, the iWatch and the Nest thermostat, and all this fun stuff. But behind that, there's a lot of other stuff going on. So there's platforms, there's wireless networks, there's, of course, a ton of sensors and technology that goes into the things, but also the technology has to all be playing together in order for the things to work. So we have to kind of keep that in mind. We're not just talking about the endpoint device. So this is a model that I use for innovation. So I like to say that innovation is mechanistic, meaning that you can create the future. You can create things, and innovation isn't just a dreamer sitting in the corner or some really bright guy who has some great idea. It's somebody who envisions something that's going to happen down the road, and then they work to create it. And that's the way innovation operates in reality. So in order to do that, you have to have a really good idea of what's coming up. And I usually am looking 3 to 5 years out. So not 20 years, and I'm not like in my next, in the next lifetime or my kid's lifetime or whatever, but kind of what's coming up in a manageable time frame that we can pretty much see the trends today that are leading us in that direction. And we can look at all these things. So we can look at megatrends, and we can look at demographics. We can look at what's happening in the economics. So 3 to 5 years, if the economy's down, it's probably going to be up. And if it's up, then it's probably going to be down. So we can anticipate what's happening with that. New technologies, you can look at the technology enabling companies that are out there. The chip manufacturers are the ones that typically are creating the leading thought leaders in technology. What's the core capability that's going to be built into products and services coming up. What's happening in competitive inside of your own market. So if we're inside of the end market that you're selling into. And emerging companies are a really good way to also look at trends. So how many companies are coming into a market is a really good way to see what's being disrupted and what type of activity that is going on and where the VC funds are going. And really the ultimate objective here is to take that emerging reality and then flow that back all the way to what am I doing today that I need to change in order to get there, in order to make it happen. And you want to maximize your planning horizon. So if you're looking 3 to 5 years out, then you're not reactive to your competitors who are doing something, like they made an announcement, and you had no idea that was going to happen. So maximizing your planning horizon means that you set up certain stages. So you start to explore a topic, perhaps, maybe that's a long ways off, seems pretty futuristic to you. Beyond or closer to that, then you can strategize or start planning. How am I going to do that? And so that's looking at this process here. Maybe I start to incubate a business. So if I have a good idea and I think it's something that can come to market that's going to be competitive and has a lot of value, then I start to look at how do I form a business around that. And then once I do that, and I've got some pilot customers, then I transfer it and I try to expand that and scale it up. Please stop and ask questions anytime. So what are the mega trends that are really driving the Internet of Things, and wearables being a subset of the Internet of Things? We know that there's a lot of technology. So technology is obviously, I think, even leading the way here, which is not necessarily always a good thing because we can overdevelop the technology, but really do we have the use cases for it? And so use cases are in business models, and we have some fitness activity use cases, health use cases that are pretty compelling, and we have the quantified self-movement, which is out there. And it's not mass market by any sense, and it's really come slowly gain momentum. But on the other side, we've got millennials who are incredibly tech savvy, and they're also managing both ends. They're managing their kids and their parents, and they're trying to manage their own lives, and so they have a lot of stress on them, and so they're looking for things to make their life easier. And wearables and other things maybe that. And people are living longer, as most of you probably know, and so that also offers an opportunity. And Ryan is gung ho on that concept. But how do you work with those demographics, and what does that mean to your business, and how can you take advantage of those? Questions about that? No? So one thing about wearables is that we really see that this is a technology looking for a market. And so when a technology is looking for a market, that means that you have to really focus now on what's the business case, the use case, and what is the market need for this type of technology. And so the challenge now is not the technology. The challenge is figuring out what's that compelling need that's in the market. And so I think we're going to...
So you can take your guess as to which of these is going to be the breakthrough?
None of them.
None of them?
Yeah, I don't think so. So right now, I don't think that the use case is identified. And the only reason I say that is because we don't see a lot of momentum behind any one thing, and we are still a little bit mobile centric. So yeah, it's great that I can turn my lights on and off with my phone, but it's just as easy to find my phone as it is to walk over the light and turn it on. Now remotely, so away from the house, if I want to be able to do something or monitor or see some activity, that provides some value to me as long as it's something that I care about at the home, like the garage door being shut, because I think that's a pretty good use case, but it's a very point solution. And is that really something that's mass market scale? So I think it's still out there. I think we still need to think about that. And I don't, fitness activity, I think, is one of the first markets to really get some traction because the sensor technology and the ability to track is easy. But I think Suji would tell us that just because you can track it and you know it, doesn't mean you change what you do. So, yes, I might have had a Fitbit and it helped me lose, 5 pounds, 3 months ago, but doesn't mean I'm going to change my behavior once I stop wearing the Fitbit. And I think that that's what we're seeing now, is that didn't really do anything for me.
Yeah, I would add that we provide Fitbits to all our employees, and my take on that is that the people who would have done all the right things anyway
That's right.
continue to do the right things and maybe do more of it.
Yes.
But that's not the problem.
That's right.
We're not addressing the problem.
Exactly. So let's look at the wearable market in particular. So just to preface this a little bit, no analyst report is accurate. No analyst forecast is ever going to be right, ever. So also all analysts are biased by whatever number they put out in the past. So you always have to look at a variety of pieces of information in order to get a some sense of what the real reality may be. So, but you can look directionally. So there's almost all analysts are looking at wearables, and there's a range now that in 2018, which isn't that far away, 3 to 5 years, 64 million to about 500 million devices, which is a pretty giant range of estimates. Okay, so let's assume, down here, this one is done by Cisco. Cisco is, of course, providing core technology, so, it's good, maybe a good estimate, because this is how they're planning to deliver that core technology. So if the core technology isn't there, then the device isn't there, et cetera. So they say 177 million, so it's, in the ballpark of the range of the estimate. There's going to be about 20 mobile devices sold for every wearable, just to put that in perspective. So if you think about the wearables could potentially proliferate. So how many phones do you have? Probably one or maybe two. But how many wearables could you have? You probably could have a lot more than 1 or 2 wearables eventually. And so so why is it that it's still 20 phones for every wearables? That means that there's no mass market penetration. And why isn't there mass market penetration? Because if we look at it, it's a $30 billion market, divide that by 177 million devices, that's an ASP, average selling price of about $170. $170 isn't going to reach mass market. So we need the price to come down on the ASP for mass market adoption, and we also need to get away from the mobile-centric concept that we have today in order to increase that number. The ear wearable I thought was interesting because if you guys are using ear, big market in just the ear itself. So getting away from chest strap and watch. Questions?
I just have a comment as it applies to the senior market as well. A lot of the feedback I think that people have gotten around wearables is that there's a lot of companies working in sort of their own silo, doing a glucose monitor, doing a blood pressure monitor. And in particular in that market, they're saying, one person is not going to buy 10 devices at $170 a piece. So there really is a push towards collaboration around each wearable device, and how do you, maybe you have a bracelet with charms and you can add a charm for each device or each wearable piece that you want to add, like a blood pressure charm and a glucose charm, and it has to work in collaboration with others because of the price point. And you've got somebody, 85 years old who's not going to put forth that money.
Right. Which also gets to the point of business model, right? So you've got all of these different people who are operating in the silos that they have,
Right.
but they all also do it a little bit differently, and they have different distribution and different, the ecosystem isn't very well developed yet.
Right.
But that's, I think, all coming. It's just a matter of time. Who's really going to step up and lead that way? But that's a very good point about the proliferation of devices. Not only is there proliferation, but wearables right now, this is a great chart, are basically everywhere. So they're not just in, so the 177 million devices are not just in healthcare and fitness, but in medical, but they're everywhere. So we can see that, potentially the wearables market is, everything out there in the world could become, connected, which is what the Internet of Things is about. So some of the use cases I think are kind of unique here. So, the smart training shoes, the activity tracker, the Nike's trying to do that now. We've got the sensor bands, and bracelets and all that stuff. I just question the real value of what they can offer without doing what Brian's saying, which is we're providing a more integrated user-focused solution, which we're not really there yet. So, let's go into medical specifically. So looking just at this component right here is the healthcare and fitness, and how does that look in terms of the penetration and the size of the market? So the size of the bubble indicates how big that market is today, and you can see sports and activity tracker up here, healthcare here, wearable cameras, which is pretty interesting. I mean, this is like GoPro, right? Are they using that for health and fitness? I don't know. Maybe. I would guess if you're out riding the bike and you got your GoPro on. And smartwatches, of course. And here's clothing, 3D motion trackers, and smart glasses. So, it's an interesting breakdown, and it's a current snapshot. It's not a projection of what's going on. And as we see, there's a lot of companies here, very few of which we actually know of. other than Victor and Nike and some of the, ones that have been in this market a little bit longer. But again, a lot of startup activity to me indicates that it's going to be a very big market because there's investment going in there and there's people coming into the market that are trying to figure out what the right business case is, what the right user need is, and how to make money. So in innovation, a lot of times we are looking at markets like this, and you need a way to break it down. So it's great that it's a big market and all that, but how do we look at particular innovations, either in the market as a whole or as a company or a particular point solution, and evaluate that and see where we can find opportunity, or we can proactively look for how do we build a business around a particular innovation. So it goes on a, it doesn't have to be like this, but it's roughly a process. So is it feasible? Can it actually be done? Is the technology there? Is it safe? Is the ecosystem or the coordination around the people who have to play together, is that in place? Is it available? So how will it be made available? So how will people be able to access or be able to use it, in addition to how do you get it into the market? And then are aware. So if it's available, are they aware it's there? Those are, I think, all pretty straightforward. Security. Are there security or privacy concerns? Information as well as physical security are important. Internet of Things has kind of taken a little bit of a hit around not being secure because you have these little point solutions. Nobody thinks that, oh, I can get into my whole network through a light bulb or through an iWatch or through, whatever. But it's possible, and I think, I don't know if you guys have heard in the news, somebody hacked into Tesla, and then they were able to access the iPhone, and then they were able to get all the personal information. So an interesting thing about the security of the endpoints, and that's it's a big problem. And the more people focus on the security, it's really because they haven't seen any value. And so value, let's go back and think about internet banking. People say, oh, I don't know if I put all my bills, all my financials, all that stuff online. You guys remember that? Because it's not secure. But we did it anyway, didn't we? Because eventually it became so valuable that it saved us so much time and energy that we said, well, yeah, we're going to put all this stuff online and we're going to, use that because it makes our life a lot easier. And we stopped worrying about security because we said, well, the banks must have it. So that same thing will happen in every single innovation that's out there. There will be concerns about security until the value really becomes high enough to tip that over. And then incentives. Incentives are really important because it helps to gain momentum. So once you have it out there and people see the value, the incentives are around it. So think about it, go back to internet banking as an example. Once you got all your bills online, you got rid of envelopes and stamps and trips to the post office and the mailman and missing one if it just came in your mailbox but you didn't pick up the mail, you weren't home, on vacation, whatever. Now your internet banking is available. So all the incentives around an innovation help to push that mass market or push the mass adoption of the innovation. So saving time, energy, and money, essentially, in whatever way you can. Questions about that? So we're going to do a little application of this model for ourselves. So innovation business models are always applied to people or things in the world. So if you're going to build a business case, you have to count things, people, whatever. So I thought since we've got tech-savvy millennials, or people in the kind of the middle, they need to take care of their kids and they need to take care of their parents. So those are the two markets that I looked at because they're the ones who are buying the technology right now. So they're going to buy it because they need to take care of their family and they have some concern about whether their family is in good health and in good condition, and so they think the wearable might be the way to go. So is it feasible? Interesting, here's where we can find opportunities, right? So obviously it's feasible to do. We've got all the sensor technology, we've got all that stuff built in. We can attach it to the onesie. You unattach it, you put it in a wireless charging pad, which is also very nice. There's no port in the thing, it's all wireless charging. And then it just goes back in the onesie after you wash it. So it can be washed and charged and everything's good. Question is, can the kid chew on it? And is it somehow, has it been tested for safety? Do you want wireless signals attached to your kid? I don't know, some people don't like it attached to their ears, so would you put it on your belly, and does that matter? So I think there's a question about the safety of wearables, and especially with little kids. So it's available. It's available all major real retailers, online, in the store, Target, everywhere. They've been in most of the major press. I have seen them many times pop up in articles, and especially as a good example of wearables. There's another wearable for baby that's a little band that you put on the ankle, which just looks like a little red bubble on a band that you can put on the ankle, and it does pretty much the same thing. It is secured over Wi-Fi, so it's just as secure as anything else that's connected to your Wi-Fi, which may or may not be too secure. And the status is pushed out to multiple devices or any devices that you connect up to the system. So value, so there's of course the health and safety of your family, which is very valuable to most people to know that your family is healthy and safe. Less worry perhaps for the new parent who's tired and needs more sleep, and maybe they can rest more easily. Early warning of problems, so is my baby not sleeping, or are they have temperature or something wrong with their breathing, etc. And $200. So here we go back to the ASP. $200 for a starter kit includes 3 onesies, which are probably like a couple dollars, and the turtle, the body thing that does all the monitoring, plus the base unit that you connect up to your Wi-Fi and the wireless charging port. So it's pretty expensive. And I guess there are millennials out there that will, of course, pay anything for their kids, and baby stuff in general is kind of expensive. So maybe $200 is a okay price point, but it's not going to be a mass market adoption at $200. I think it needs to be a little price. And then what are the incentives? So think about saving, right? Or saving other activity or cost or time. So you don't need an audio monitor, so you don't need the other standalone monitor anymore. That can go away, which does save time. I don't know, but my question would be, does it communicate with emergency services or doctors? So if my baby stops breathing, is it going to trigger a 911 alert? Or does it just send it to my cell phone, which I'm so exhausted from taking care of this baby, I don't hear my phone go off, right? So what does it do? What other incentive can I package into this thing that's going to make it that much more valuable? And what about communicating with doctors? So how reliable do we self-report? Did the baby have a temperature? I don't know. Yeah, it felt kind of hot. How high was the temperature? I don't know. So, and how long have I had the temperature? So, and reusable. So is it reusable to the point where once my kid is grown out of the onesies, can I give the whole system to somebody else? So is there a hand-me-down thing? Is that part of the value proposition? If I'm going to spend $200, now am I going to perpetuate the use of it, or is it going to become obsolete and won't be able to be used?
Especially if you've got 5 children.
Yeah. Yes.
So are they starting to think about this more from a healthcare medical perspective? Because when I look at this model, especially for this case, think about who's the consumer, who's the end user, where are the incentives? Because you can think about this from a direct-to-consumer, consumer's going to go to Target and buy, and you can think about, okay, the insurance company. You can show it saves costs, or the doctors, or any of the other companies out there into medical records. And so the way this technology generally gets driven, or certainly scaled, right, is when the big boys get involved and there's a value proposition for them. Mm-hmm. So it's an intersection of both, and we deal with it every day in my company, right, because that's what we're doing. So are they starting to think about, who is the business customer for this technology, and to the extent will they support it, and will it reduce costs in the healthcare system? Because that's what companies care about. Yeah. That's what insurance companies care about.
Right. Yep. And that's a really good question. So today they're direct to consumer, but is there an integration with the doctors or any of the other services that So if let's say my kid's born and I know that there's a risk, so could my doctor, paid for by my insurance, give me a set of onesies with
Yeah, sure, it saves money, and that's why I think of the growth in that CAGR.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously not a straight line in
Yeah.
this era, but
Yeah.
those inflection points are when you start to think about it also in the B2B play coming in.
Yeah.
Right, to the extent it can be.
So these startup companies are not, I don't think, looking at the ecosystem of
So it's still only direct to consumer.
But I think that, you know, the ones that get the right use case where they've got a big mass market, they're gonna go then to the other players in the ecosystem. But, you know, it's, I think, daunting for a startup to think about going and talking to an insurance company and talking to the medical community and all that stuff. They do say here on their website that they are not a medical device, quote unquote, because they don't want to.
Regulatory, that's for regulation purposes.
Michael maybe wants to.
It's the right thing to say.
So let's look at seniors. So I didn't go through the whole long list, but seniors, Care Predict has a little bracelet like Brian was talking about. It does quite a few things. What it generally does is track activity so that you can create patterns. And so part of the value of Internet of Things and of wearables is predictive. So how do you get ahead so that you know something's going on? So here, what they're doing is they're building up a history, a pattern of activity, what time you usually go to bed, what time you usually get up, do you take your medicines, all that sort of stuff. And then if something doesn't happen in the pattern that it typically does, then you can set up an alert to say, well, somebody needs to know that something odd is going on, and then have somebody do an intervention. So that's the idea. It's pretty expensive, and as Ryan was saying, for seniors, this is really expensive. So not only do you pay $200 for the device, but you have to pay for monitoring service, $180 a year, which I know, you know, I know a lot of seniors that are on Social Security would not find this very, very promising at all, and they wouldn't be able to afford it. So, you know, then I think you would say, well, who's the customer? So maybe it's the millennial who's the, you know, who the one is concerned about their parents who, you know, and they give them the watch and they pay for the monitoring service. So I don't know, you know, we need to look at how this is being marketed. It's also being marketed to caregivers, to your point, and so that they can create this history of how a person is behaving, and they can get the update. So I think professional caregivers as well as family. So what are the opportunities here? Seniors, Ryan, maybe you can say something about this too, but overcoming resistance to being watched. So do I want to be monitored as a person? You know, maybe not. Is it offered as a service? So let's say that for a short period of time I need to be monitored and I'm okay with that, but eventually I want to say no. You know, I want to get rid of that. And think about maybe there's an extension to people who are in rehab or rehabbing at home, people who are disabled perhaps that need monitoring. This is not being marketed to them today. What about alerting for loss of the wireless connection, fire or other emergencies that are going on in home, for example? And again, the price is too high. And is there a possibility for discounts? So is the incentive for the senior that if you wear this and we can figure out what the activity is, then maybe there's other services that would be able to help. So cleaning services, handyman, grocery store delivery, you know, what are the things that you can wrap around the information that you're gathering from these devices? And so that's a different opportunity. So just in summary, so I'm on time here. So the Internet of Things and wearables are riding on top of really significant trends. I think that there's no doubt that this will eventually become mass market adoption. I think we're just at the very, very tip on the front of it. If you are looking at wearables or thinking about them, maximize your planning horizons, start looking ahead, look 3 to 5 years out from now, and start developing what you think the right business model is. And that's really where the hole is right now, is in the business model, not in the technology. You can use the innovation adoption model. And remember that in innovation, we are always directionally right and specifically wrong. So you got to check your logic very often. Typically 6 months to 2 years, even kind of a long time in a developing market. So it's a good idea to keep on with that.